everybody. I am super excited today to chat with David Hansom. He is a podcaster, entertainer, speaker. He does several different things, but he is in our wedding world as well as a DJ, entertainer, does some other video stuff too on the side. I think we can chat a little bit more on that too. But I am super excited to chat with him today. We are going to kind of dive into accountability, how to keep yourself accountable in your business when you are building a business, because a lot of times the services you offer and what you do really well, but then when you try to add in that business element and that entrepreneur side, that is a sticking point. And accountability is kind of a huge piece to that, because there's definitely different pieces that you need to build your business to get it to where you want it to be. So welcome, David. Thanks for being with us. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So tell us just a little bit about kind of how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. So my career kind of started when I was in high school. My goal in life was to actually be a professional athlete, but unfortunately, due to some reconstructive surgeries on both of my ankles and actually having to learn how to walk 3 times in my life, it kind of pointed me in a different direction. So my parents started kind of asking me, what else do you like? And I said, well, I love music and I like being the class clown. So I figured, why not be a DJ? That seems like the most appropriate job for those 2 things, right?
Yeah.
But I actually started on radio and I had a lot of fun on radio, and it was a cool experience. But quite honestly, and I'm dating myself a little bit, but I found out very quickly that you couldn't pay your bills with CDs and concert tickets. So I figured I've got to find something else in that world to do, that I can still stick into that world, but not necessarily in the radio side of things. So I was introduced to some really cool people who did weddings and private events and corporate events and things like that. And that's kind of how I moved into that side of things. And it was an interesting experience because I am admittingly a very introverted person, and in radio it wasn't that big of a deal because you're kind of in this 10 by 10 box, and there's nobody but you and the equipment, and you have no idea whether there's 10 people listening or 10 million people listening, right? And then when you take that and translate that into an audience of people where now you're in front of an audience of 100 people or 1,000 people or anywhere in between, that was something that was really interesting to overcome. And to this day, still many years later, I'm still very introverted in my normal life. Like it's a switch that I think you literally flip when it's time to go to work. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I didn't know all of that story about you, and that's cool. The fact that you have overcome all of those things helps you in building a business, because I could see how that would all play together, because there is so many kind of hurdles and nothing goes exactly the way that you think it's going to go. You can plan out as much as possible when you're building a business, but there's always those ups and downs, and there's it's never just a smooth sailing. And so I'm sure that has really helped you kind of your mindset and things like that as you're building businesses and stuff like that.
Well, I think there's some people that really get very lucky in any business, but talking about our world and the wedding and events world, I think there's some people that get very lucky, and either it can be timing or it can be a circumstance where, for example, a planner might have somebody that they've worked with for a very long time, and unfortunately that person just did something to turn them off, and then you were the right person in the right place at the right time, and it could just launch you into a completely different stratosphere that you didn't even know existed. But the reality is it's kind of like those YouTube sensations. Like we don't really see all the struggle and the frustrations and the aggravations and all the things that they went through to become this YouTube sensation that we view them as. And that happens in every business, and so I think it's wise to understand that there is going to be adversity, there are going to be hurdles, but more importantly, knowing that you probably just don't know it all. And if you can let your ego get out of the way and say, hey, I might be really, really good at baking cakes, or I might be really, really good at taking pictures, but I've never taken a business class in my entire life. I don't come from maybe an entrepreneurial family, which if you do, that's great. But a lot, just from talking to so many people in our industry, I feel like they just stumbled upon what they're doing and they love it as the craft of what they're doing, or I like to call it the deliverable that they're giving, but they have no business knowledge whatsoever. And so it's something you have to be aware of. It's something you have to get out of your own way of and just be willing to learn and be willing to open to being a little uncomfortable in that process.
Yep. I say the same thing. Yeah. You got to kind of get out of your comfort zone. And I love the internet world in the sense that you don't need to go to, college and learn business classes anymore. And you don't need, there's so much knowledge and so much that you can just learn from the internet and from coaches and people like you and me that are out there, that you can just gain that knowledge to start to kind of help you get, to that next level. So then maybe you can keep that momentum going. And so, yeah, you're completely right in that sense that, and everything you said, you're right. You're spot on with my exact thoughts that I have too. So tell me, what is, from the accountability side, what kind of is your number one tip for people from that side that they could implement into their business?
So I'll give you a couple if that's okay, because I think there's a couple of things. But the number one most important thing that I think when it comes to accountability is kind of a two-part thing. Number one, no matter what you say to yourself, the most difficult person to hold you accountable is yourself. Okay, because it's so easy to lie to yourself. It's so easy to tell yourself all the things you need to hear in order to make this and this connect with each other. But a lot of times you're really honestly lying to yourself. So that's the number one person to avoid being your accountability person. I would say the number two person is your spouse or a family member or something like that, because they're typically they're either not really going to tell you what you need to hear, or if they are willing to tell you what you're going to hear from a business standpoint, how does that affect the personal standpoint of the relationship? And so I think it's important to realize that the person that you want to be your accountability partner or your accountability coach, or just that accountability piece in your life and in your business, has to be someone, that you are willing to say, I want you to tell me how it is. I know that I'm not always going to do the right things, but I want you to call me out when I don't. But I also appreciate when you reward me for when I do well. And a true, valuable accountability person should be willing to do both of those things. You know what I mean? So accountability is just that thing where it's like, you say you want to accomplish X. I think it's important to put a deadline, timeline, those kind of things on it. And then another piece that I find that I have a lot of fun with the folks that I work with is creating some sort of a penalty. And it doesn't have to be like anything outrageous. Okay, here's a couple examples. Like one of the guys that I work with, he despises doing push-ups. So that's his penalty. You set a goal for yourself. You don't reach that goal, you do push-ups. And then after you get done moaning and groaning about doing push-ups, we start looking at what prevented you from accomplishing that goal, what habits, what strategies, what things can we change in order to not let that happen again? Or do we realize and analyze the fact that that goal is just completely unattainable for reasons that maybe are out of your control? Or maybe it's a situation where there's another goal that you need to accomplish before you can get to that ultimate goal. It's the old saying goes, there's levels to this thing. And I kind of think it's a little bit of a silly saying, but there is some truth to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I have another person I work with that when they miss their goal, they have to make a financial donation to the opposing political party of their favor. So they don't ever want to miss their goals because they don't want to have to.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that concept because I think it's that mental mindset piece that it just gives you that extra if I don't accomplish this, and what you're setting to accomplish is to keep you moving forward in your business, or you could use that in life too, and if there's anything else you wanted to accomplish, you're and it's fun to put some fun around your business as well. That's kind of one of the things because it can get stressful, it can get overwhelming. And so you want to add in those fun pieces. And even when you can even kind of flip that around too, and be like, when you do accomplish a goal, what's something that you're going to do for yourself or for like, and so it could be, you could actually have a two-part. You could have the penalty if you don't do it, and you could have the win part when you do accomplish it. And so that kind of gives you that whole both angles. So then that way you're celebrating when you do accomplish the goal too. So
yeah, no, I love that piece there as well. The folks I'm working with right now are so like numbers and data and goal driven that they don't even need that extra boost. But I do think that's a great idea, and I think you're right. I think because I find myself even I have a tendency to just keep going like a freight train 100 miles an hour and not stopping and saying like I'm really proud of what I've accomplished. I'm really proud of what I've done. And ironically, we were talking before we got started about an event that we did last night and with my company. And this was an event that honestly, a lot of the components of it were way out of the wheelhouse of anything I've ever personally done as a business and as an entity before. And I remember I actually was kind of teary-eyed emotional at the end of the night, because I was like, wow, like not on my own, like through the help of some really, really wonderful people, but it was like, I really accomplished this. Like I really pulled this off and made it happen. And it was the client was over the moon with it. And the event was just something that, you can just stop and appreciate the fact that you were able to make it happen. Yeah.
That's awesome that you're able to do that, because that's something that as I've grown my business that I didn't really take the time to do was, to stop and to celebrate those wins and to celebrate those, victories or those points that you've gotten to in your business. And so I just kept same thing, just, steamrolled ahead, and just kept going and like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the, and then you're like, then you do stop and you're like, oh my gosh, like what have I accomplished? Oh, I have accomplished a lot, but I didn't like celebrate it along the way. And so that's so that's always something I like to share with people is to try to celebrate along the way, because it'll make what you're doing even better, like, what I mean, because you'll understand kind of why you're doing all of this and making it all happen. So
right,
I love that. What is kind of your, DJ entertainment, that's kind of your world that you kind of started in and that you do a lot with the wedding side of stuff in. Is there anything that you specifically find for DJs that are important as they're, building their business or anything like that?
Yeah. So I think it's maybe not necessarily DJ specific, but definitely our industry specific, in the sense that one of the pieces that we really try to work on when we do training with new people that come on to our staff is that we really are in the people business. We're not really in the music business. You know what I mean? Like our job is to provide music, and our job is to provide that voice of the event that carries the audience from beginning to end and so forth. But at the end of the day, we're really in the people business, and we're dealing often, when you talk about weddings, maybe not necessarily on the corporate side, but definitely on the wedding side, we're dealing with a customer who has never really done this before. Maybe they've been to weddings before, but they've never probably been on this side of it. And I know people will say, well, what about second weddings and all that stuff? But at the end of the day, the bulk of our clientele have never done this before. So you're going to have all kinds of personalities, and they are going to be dealing. And when I say they, I'm talking the couple, I'm talking their parents, the layers just keep going. And there are these different emotions, and there's these different things that are going to be happening throughout the process of this event. And then especially when the event happens and all their friends and family are there, and the emotion of all that hits them, and they're going to react in ways that they probably are not prepared for. And you could tell them everything to plan for, and they still don't really, I think, fully grasp what it's going to be like. So it's important for us to understand that we have to be the voice of reason. Not that you can't have a friendship with your clients. I really think there's a big line, there's a definitive line between a friend, being friendly and being friends. And I think it's important to be friendly. I don't know how I feel about being friends, because sometimes you have to have those uncomfortable conversations. And when you're able to have those from people that you're friendly with, but you're not friends with, it makes it a little bit easier to have those conversations. But point being is that when you're able to understand, is in the most polite way I can say this, is really just business for you, like this is your business to do this, then you're able to carry yourself in a way that you don't have to take you don't have to feel like everything is a personal attack. Sometimes that's not going to be the case. We have all dealt with those clients that are just, challenging to deal with, and maybe rightfully you feel like you're being insulted or demeaned or something like that. But I'm talking about just the general, like, you can tell when this person just is reacting in a certain way because they're just not sure how to react. And so it's important, again, for us to have that voice of reason, that voice of calm, and that voice and that mentality of, I've been here before. I know how to get us to the end zone. I know how to get us to the end of this thing. Just have faith in me and we'll get you there.
Yeah. Love it. What is, when you kind of coach somebody and work with them, what's kind of your process, or what do you try to do to help them make sure that I know we talked about the penalties and things like that, but is there anything else that you kind of dive in deeper to help them from the accountability side? Is there anything else that strategies or just anything to help them actually achieve those goals that they set for themselves?
So I think first and foremost, the first conversation I try to have with people is to try to help them understand the difference between a business coach and an accountability coach. Okay, because a business coach is typically going to help you accelerate knowledge of something that you otherwise don't have to get to a place you want to get to faster, right? Like they have the knowledge. They're going to help you get there faster than potentially you could get there on your own. Accountability has nothing to do that. Accountability would be, you've hired Carissa to help you do X, and then you've come to me and said, I've hired Carissa to help me do X, and you've come to me and say, I want you to help me set these deadlines. I want you to help me analyze my game plan, analyze my strategy. Am I too far ahead of myself? Am I not far enough in where I need to be in this process? And then help me along the check-in points, and just a lot of it is checklisting. A lot of it is going back to deadlines that have been set, and going back to milestones that have been set, and saying, where are we at? And then I'm a big fan of not being like, oh well, you failed, too bad, but more so like, why was the outcome not what you wanted? Was it something that you could have prevented? Was it something you couldn't have prevented? If it was something that you could have prevented, how can we fix it and go back and either make sure it doesn't happen again? Or do we analyze it and say, well, it's probably going to happen again, but your reaction this time is going to be different. So, things like that are really, to me, the most important part of that accountability piece. And then just realizing again that there has to be a lot of vulnerability between both myself and them, because you wouldn't even have me there if you were able to do this on your own. And I don't think any of us are really able to attain the true level of success that we're all capable of attaining without having those checks and balances. And so it's really just being that voice of checks and balances, I think, is the easiest way to sum that up.
Yeah. And no matter what level you're in business, everybody has, everybody should have a coach of some sort, depending on where you're at within your business. So like, I even have a coach, for my, myself, even though, where I'm at, you know what I mean? So there's just different, because you're always trying to kind of get to that next, level. And so it's not like something you're just going to check a box off and go, oh, well, I've had my accountability coach, or I've had my business coach, I'm good now. Like if you're really kind of wanting to take it to the next level and, continue to grow and build, just know that it's not it's not like a checkbox to be like, hey, I did that. Like you got, like in school type thing. And that's kind of what I think is kind of, I like to try to educate on too. And I love that you kind of stated the difference between business coach, accountability coach, because I think the word coach gets thrown around a lot now in the world. We have life coaches, we have, there's just all of these different things. And so I think it can get confusing on like, okay, well, who do I even need to hire, or who do I even need to work with, to get to where you want to go? And that's, and it really comes down to where you're at in your life, your business, where you're trying to get to, where you're at. And then that kind of determines what type of, coach that you might need right now, and some kind of overlap and some kind of, you know what I mean? So it kind of just is finding that right fit for you as a, individual, which is sometimes you got to kind of, search a little bit, but they're out there. And what I have found too is a lot of times consistency is what will drive, you to get to where you want to go in your business too. And that's kind of where that accountability comes in, because a lot of times what you're trying to do is a consistent thing, and you just don't get that traction. And once you've built it into your process, or your weekly, daily habit, whatever it is, it kind of then becomes second nature. And then it's not so, it's not so hard, but if you can get that accountability to get to that point and build it, build out that process, it makes it so much easier. So that's where I love your, the accountability side and what you kind of offer and all of that good stuff, because that's the piece a lot of times we're missing. Like, we'll go and do the education, we'll go and do that part, but then we don't do the implementation piece. We don't just, do that next step.
Well, and to that point right there, so you hit on a really, really important point, which is kind of the reason why I wanted to kind of step into this world, because I started thinking about it and then interviewing and talking to a bunch of my colleagues and things like that. And, hopefully people that are watching this right now, and if you're not, this is another tip that you should start to take away right away, which is going to conferences and going to workshops and going to different opportunities to learn, because there's so much great education out there through all the different conferences. And some of them, like the, Wedding MBA was just, I don't know, last week or the week before of this recording time. And then in the DJ world, the DJ Collective is actually going on this week, which I was disappointed I couldn't go to this year, but my schedule just didn't allow me to be able to be there this year. But the number one thing that I experienced in my younger days of my career, and I still hear people say today, is they go to these types of events and it's like this fire hose of information. Oh, that's a great idea. Oh, that's a great idea. I want to implement this. I want to implement that, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like on like sensory overload. And so the natural thing that most people do is like this analysis paralysis is like, well, hell, I don't even know where to start. So I'm just not going to do anything. Or, you have all the best intentions in the world, and you get back home from this conference, you went to Vegas, or you went wherever you went for a week. You get back home to reality, to your families and your businesses and the real life stuff. And you have all the best intentions in the world, but it's really easy to let those things go if you don't have, and I hate to say it, but your accountability coach, partner, person, whatever, it has to kind of be like that woodpecker all the time. Boop, 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 boop. Why haven't you done it? 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 You know what I mean? Like, not to the point of completely obnoxiously annoying, right? But you are going to make more excuses not to do it for yourself than if you have, like, I don't remember what the statistic is, and I think 11 out of 10 statistics are crazy anyways, and you see what I did there. Like, I just really think statistics sometimes are BS. They just work for the conversation, right? But point being is that there's some statistic out there that says the likelihood of you doing something when you've not told anybody you're going to do it versus when you have now told somebody that you are going to do something exponentially grows, because now you have that connection in your brain of, well, I need to get this done, but I also don't want to let that person down. I know that person's going to come to me and say, how are you doing with X, whatever X is? And who wants to be like, well, I haven't done anything yet. Like, we've all had those situations happen. And I mean, listen, I'm not perfect. I still have those situations happen for me all the time. I have a list of things right over to the side of my computer here that I still need to get accomplished myself. And so we're all in that, in that constant, drive of life. But when you are able to have just that voice of, support, and sometimes it's tough love, but when you're able to have that voice of tough love and support there, your chances of accomplishing whatever your goal is, small or as large as it is, just exponentially grows. And one of the things that I really love about accountability, and I found this out through some people coming to me that I was initially nervous to kind of help, is I don't even really have to know anything about what you do, because my job is not to coach you how to do it better. My job is just to make sure you're doing what you said you want to do and figure out how to avoid pitfalls or get away from problems that keep coming up and happening to you. So that was like a revelation for me that was really cool, is like, you could be a multimillionaire, which I'm definitely not, but you could be, and I could still work with you, because I don't need to know how to be a multimillionaire to hold you accountable. I just need to know what your goals are, which are typically much bigger, grandiose goals than those of us that are just trying to get our first 10 paying customers, right? But they don't differ in any other way other than maybe financially, but every other way, they're basically the same thing. It's just goals and milestones that you're trying to accomplish. So that's kind of the cool thing about the accountability piece, is that I can kind of work with anybody wherever they are in their journey. Yep.
Awesome. Love it. Well, I have loved chatting. Is there anything else that you wanted to share today that we didn't talk about?
I don't know. I think the only other thing I could really add to the conversation is that understanding that, when because we've kind of talked about coaching, and we've dabbled a little bit in the conversation about coaching here. And I think it's important to understand that if you think about it from the fitness world, right? How many people have a gym membership, and you pay for your gym membership and you're all gung-ho to go, and you go for about 4 days, and then something happens, a child is sick, your dog eats your keys, or whatever excuse you come up with, and you're not able to go. And then that one day turns into a week, and that week turns into a month. And then next thing you know, you look back and you're like, hell, I bought this gym membership 6 months ago, and I've only been there 3 times, right? Yep. But then think about if you hire a personal trainer at that gym, and the exponential cost of that versus that membership, how many of those are you going to miss? And that's a big difference. But here's what's interesting to me, is that actually most personal trainers would probably tell you, my goal is not to work with you forever. My goal is to work with you until you get to the point where you can do this on your own. And then that's when it turns into a little bit of a more of an accountability deal, because you've retrained your brain to think a different way. You've taught yourself the skills and procedures necessary to get to where you need to get to. And then it's just those checkpoints and just those checkpoints. So same thing in business. You may have a business coach that this is not going to be somebody, and it shouldn't be somebody that you want to work with forever. And quite honestly, they shouldn't want to work with you forever, And so a lot of the people that I will work with from the business coaching side of things, I want to help people to get from ground zero to where I'm at. But I'm also okay with understanding that for them to get beyond the knowledge and the experience and the level that I can give them, they may have to go to another coach that will get them to that next level. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not ever going to try to coach somebody into doing something I haven't even done myself. And so I think as long as you're able to work with people who have that mindset and have that understanding, then you're moving in the right direction. Yep.
Love that. I love how you wrapped it up. That's awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, tell our audience how, and I'll also put it kind of in the caption or whatever in the comments. But tell them kind of how to find you.
The easiest way to find me, the easy way to find me is just on Instagram. It's just at David Hansom. That's the easiest way to find me. If you want to take a peek into my entertainment world, you can go at DJ David Hansom. I just added DJ to the front of it, and I try to keep the two separate. But sometimes there's some things that bleed over into both accounts. But that's the easiest way to find me. And I'm I love talking to people. So reach out to me anytime. And a conversation never costs you a dime. I love to just help people if I can. But I like to have a conversation first to even see if I'm a right fit for you and you're a right fit for what I'm trying to offer. So I'd love to do that.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've loved this. And hopefully, I think we've brought some great tips for everybody to implement, to start getting in from that accountability standpoint. So, all right. I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys all next time. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.